India is such a large country and there are many social problems to solve.
True.
We figure out that if we have some core competence, then we'll focus on that. If we are able to create collaboration, that's our way of life, then we'll use that to create scale and impact. I think the science of feedback and dealing within a structured and meaningful manner is what makes us more agile and more impactful on the ground.
Today we're joined in conversation by Mr. P. Balaji, who is the Chief Regulatory and Corporate Affairs Officer at Vodafone Idea Limited. Mr. Balaji is a member of the core leadership team of Vodafone Idea Limited, a leading telecom operator serving citizens and enterprises across India. The team has successfully led planning and execution of the world's largest telecom merger in a record 2 years. He leads the company's regulatory, public policy, and government relations activities, along with industry advocacy, corporate communications, reputation management, and CSR. He's a pioneer in telecom sector, joining the sector at its infancy in 1993, and has unique experience of holding leadership positions in all three telecom verticals, with leading technology, device companies, and telecom operator. Prior to joining Vodafone Idea, Mr. Balaji was managing director of Nokia India and Sony Mobile. Over the years, he had held senior leadership positions in startups, turnaround ventures of Tata Group, AT&T, Ericsson, and Lucent Technologies. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Balaji. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Absolutely delightful to catch up with you, Deepak.
Same here. And to begin with the conversation and to set the context there, so can you walk us through the varied thematic areas that the organization, which it currently is, the Vodafone Idea Limited, intends to cover and impact under its CSR mandate, and also how has these developed post the merger?
So, very good question, Deepak. So, both the erstwhile organizations, Vodafone India and Idea Limited, have had a big and strong legacy on CSR projects. And for both the organizations, technology as a means to deliver social good has been paramount. So once we completed the projects which were committed by the erstwhile companies, and we got the merger going, we decided that it was a good opportunity for us to take the learnings from both organizations and pick up the best and the most transformative programs from these companies. And we have chosen the areas of education, health, agriculture, livelihood creation, and women empowerment to focus our CSR initiatives onto. And in each of these, we've identified some of the largest problems from a social context that are felt in India, and where intervention from a company like Vodafone Idea could make a significant impact in improving both lives and livelihoods. We have focused on leveraging technology and innovation to maximize benefits through our social impact projects. The other thing that is important for us is we believe that we cannot get this going by ourselves. And so we have chosen the path of collaboration with not just social sector partners, but also governments both at state and central level. And these have helped us to make significant progress and also to scale up very rapidly through our programs. So let's just take financial literacy, an area that we've decided to focus our initiative on in the education space. We have a program called Jadoo Ginnika. And what we are doing is we are using technology and partnership. The technology is something that we've developed ourselves using multimedia tools and a bunch of interactive, gaming techniques that make learning much fun and easier for people that want to get into financial literacy. And now we've also collaborated with the Ministry of IT's Common Services Center, which have nearly 300,000 plus across the country in rural India. And due to this kind of a partnership with government, with social sector partner, Learning Links Foundation, we've been able to deliver, and NIIT Foundation, we've been able to deliver a basic financial literacy program to a lot of people in rural India. You'd be happy to know that we have been able to reach 10 million beneficiaries already in a very short time span.
Amazing.
And out of this, nearly 50% of them are women in rural India. Likewise, we decided to focus on smart agri. And here, what we've done is we've picked up IoT, which is basically using sensors on the field. We picked up cloud-based solutions. and deep analytics in order to enhance farm output. And this is something that's now rolled out to 50,000 farmers of cotton and soya crops in Maharashtra and MP. The beauty of it is the outcome is pretty exciting. In the first crop cycle itself, the costs from a production point of view for the farmers has come down 15 to 20%. And initial estimates, and we'll get even better as we go along, shows that 12 to 14% is the increase in the output already. So significant impact even in the Smart Agri project. And the last example of technology and collaboration, if I were to say, is our scholarship portal. This is the first multilingual scholarship program and portal that provides students access to scholarships on the go. So literally, they get to know what scholarships they are potentially entitled to, and because of that, and knowing about the timeliness of it, enhances their chance of availing scholarships 4 to 5 times. What we have done is we've used many innovative technologies like chatbot integration to have the children fill up their details very easily. We do profile mapping, we do advanced analytics to make sure that the children who fill in their profiles are matched to the few scholarship programs where their chance of getting those scholarships are enhanced. So things like these are ways that we have chosen to make our impact. So technology, collaboration, and large scale and impact are something that we focus a lot on.
Wonderful. And Mr. Balaji, it's truly great to know that you're not just focusing on one domain with that many resources at hand and that many resources from 2 companies that are merged together right now. So it's great that you're focusing it on multiple areas and also just scaling it up in the future. So coming to your personal expertise, and I would say the rich experience that you've had over the years and the exposure also in the crucial domains in the telecom sector as well as the industry. So how does that align with the on-ground efforts that you're trying to create with the current organization and under the CSR mandate again?
So Deepak, I was fortunate to join the telecom sector. It's, as you rightly said, in the nascent stage in the early 90s. And so I'm blessed to be part of a sector, an industry that has actually transformed the lives of people, citizens, enterprises, and our nation as a whole. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for me and many others who then joined a few years later. And the one thing that we figured out that this entire industry that we've been able to provide voice and data services at population scale has been through active collaboration among the ecosystem players and through a process of innovation, India-specific solutions, frugal innovation in order to drive larger reach, and therefore the more you reach at lower cost, the better you have the socio-economic growth in the country. Now, I can say that the other thing which has been extremely important for me to learn is that as long as you focus on your core competency as individuals and organizations, and as long as you collaborate, you can create huge impact on the business side as well as the social side. I have a wonderful team, and between the team and myself, we're always on the lookout for innovation happening on multiple sides. On one hand, the business side of Vodafone Idea, in the IT space, in the digital space, because that allows us to use some of those innovations and see how we can leverage them in creating specific solutions in the chosen area that I talked about earlier. Now, we also have a very varied and experienced team that has a good understanding of technology, IT, project execution, and we also have great relationships in the social sector and in the government side. And these are therefore something that we harness all the time in designing our programs. 2 other examples, if I take our education program, Jigyasa. Now, what we've done here is, at an initial stage, of course, we started with distributing equipment to teachers that were trained under these initiatives. And the training was to do only 2 big things. One is to make sure that you create online content and also collaborate with other teachers on a portal so that you're able to create very compelling education content, which is modular in nature. Once it's modular, you can pick and choose in order to coach students, and they also get access to it from anywhere. Now, we also created this portal which is highly collaborative, and it's based on cloud again. Cloud again means 2 things: A, anywhere, anytime, no problem, and second is, of course, limitless scale up, right? That's the advantage. And what it has therefore done is by engaging with each other, providing a tool for teachers to engage with each other, we've now got over 12,000 actively engaged teachers across 8 states. Now, what it has also done in the bargain is that it has led to improved education outcome for 600,000 students, right? 12,000 teachers that are collaborating with each other, and we have 600,000 students that are now registered on this portal, and again, who are benefiting. The interesting thing is we started this particular work where we've also tied up with some of the state government and social sector entities to increase the reach and impact. Because the pandemic, as we all know, that online has therefore become the mode for all practical purposes for education being imparted. And so this particular portal, with its underlying technology innovation that we looked at, has been able to scale up dramatically, and therefore has made a huge impact, much more than even we anticipated. When we started this a few years ago, we didn't expect it to be so successful, but with the pandemic, which is very unfortunate, but the plus side is that the adoption has been very, very high for this particular platform. And the other thing that we did was, again, to give illustration on this particular example, is on this particular question is what we call the rural distribution model with the Rudy Wen project, which we started. Here we work with women entrepreneurs and self-help groups. And these women entrepreneurs and self-help groups are in the business of rural distribution. They source products, they process products. It could be just things like haldi, rice, and so on and so forth, or jeera and things like that. And they also distribute the products within their own community. So within a rural community, they're able to do a lot of these things. Now, they were struggling with inventory management and so on and so forth. And what we've done is we've taken the entire complexity away from them and created inventory management tool and ERP platform on the back end. And now these women on the go, using just simple feature phones or smartphone, depending on what they have, are able to enhance their livelihood nearly 3 to 4 times, because they suddenly they know exactly what's in stock in the processing center. They can place their orders in advance, and then the processing centers, which are again manned by self-help groups, so these women are able to plan their inventory better. Now, these kind of things, again, are the learnings that I found, that if you look at business, if you look at IT, if you look at digital, there are innovations happening. How can we put some of these things into play with your team in a social context and devise specific solutions which are India innovations and frugal innovation in order to drive more adoption? And so that's the big learning for me over the last 2.5, 3 decades that we're able to bring into this particular CSR space.
Okay. And I totally agree with you, Mr. Balaji, there, where you said that there's definitely a silver lining to the current pandemic as well. That since you're in the technology space, so you'll be in the best space to know that, since technology is the way forward for a lot of things. Education per se, like you already mentioned in the example that you're taking forward in your initiatives, how you're making it easier for students and teachers, and even content, the creation of it through your technological advancements. Talking about another point that you put out there about frugal innovation and increasing the accessibility of resources for the last mile, or these areas which have not had that access due to the resources not being available there at their hand. So how is it that say for the agri-based initiative, like you mentioned, so there's this program that you are running currently, My Amber and Smart Agri. So how is the concept of frugal innovation being used there, and how are you using your technological expertise to kind of link those people to the market also?
I think you asked a very, very relevant question. And clearly, the innovation on the technology front in solving some of these problems is at the heart of what we do, along with our social sector partners and the entities that we work with, because their insights are equally important. We may come up with few solutions, and they can tell us better, saying, okay, this will work, this will not work, right? And that feedback, they're literally the voice of the end beneficiary. And in some cases, we even roll out these pilot solutions with end beneficiaries. We found that very useful even in our Jadoo Ginni Ka project, because if you're teaching people basic financial literacy, unless you think it lands well with the end beneficiaries, a lady in rural Bihar, for example, or Uttar Pradesh, then the whole effort is lost. And we find that very useful. Same way, when we looked at MyAmber, we realized that there was a real problem that we were having to solve for the society. There's a study from the National Family Health Survey which says that 27% of women in India have experienced physical violence since the age of 15 in India. This is just physical violence. The mental harassment, I'm sure, would take it to a much higher number, right? So clearly things like women's safety and empowerment remains a critical topic. And so we decided to work with our social sector partner and come with this app, which is MyAmber. Now, clearly keeping this problem in mind. We think that in the first year itself, we should be able to get 100,000 women understand, address, and combat gender-based violence. Now, that's a start. And obviously, there'll be a multiplier effect as it starts to, the word starts to spread around. Now, we decided that the solution had to be holistic, and therefore the app development is also holistic, which is what we discussed and decided to do with our social sector partner. And there are many small but important features. One is basic information on the fly, which women need to have. Second is the ability to send SOS messages when they are in trouble, right? Third is also the ability to reach out and connect with counselors in a safe space. That's really what is very important to deal with it on a holistic basis. And so doing all of this with safety and well-being of the victim or beneficiary in this case in mind, we have designed in such a way that it's kind of anonymized or disguised, so that the user can even use the app very securely in a situation of duress without other people around them even realizing that they're using an app to send out a distress message. So that's some of the things that we did in terms of innovations for developing this app. In the Smart Agri itself, I guess the big learning was that if you're a large farmer, you have the ability, and you're in Punjab right now, so you'll realize that when the land holdings are large, when the scale is large, it's very easy for the the farmer, to basically get access to the best of information, the best of tools and implements in order to basically manage their affairs. But unfortunately, bulk of our farmers in India have very small farm holdings. Now, we said we've done the same thing in the business side, where we've taken the lack of scale and being able to scale up telecom and voice and data services. So why can't we do the same thing with agri? So what we did was, with that in mind, we've actually tried to work with our social sector partner to create farmer cooperators, because then when they come together, they're able to kind of build their strengths of being one, and therefore create some scale. Number two, we are making sure that information which they need on the go, whether it's about farm, whether it's about whether they've been hit by a pestilence, if so, what pesticides are required at that point of time, what is the level of moisture in the soil, and so on. Some very basic things like these, which we are now able to provide them using technologies. We've got sensors based on IoT, which are then there in the farm. You don't have to then put it in every farm, but in a cluster of farms, if you have that, that's good enough, because you get a general sense of the lay of the land. And so that creates the advantage that they can get real-time information. The sensor information then goes over the cloud, and so real-time it gets to the back end. There we have analytics put in place. We've tied up with agri universities and experts in that domain, along with our social sector partner. Therefore, those people are able to analyze this data which is coming to them in real-time manner. They're able to synthesize it and say, okay, fine, this is what the intervention needs to be done on the ground. So all the complexities behind, and on the front end, simple SMS or a notification or a phone call going to the farmer on a periodic basis saying, this is the problem you're facing, this is what you've got to do in order to make sure you safeguard your crops. And one simple example, a farmer actually told us, he said, earlier I would just take the leaves and go to the retailer and ask them for pesticide, he or she, whether to sell more or because they could not decipher things, they say, you know what, take these 3 pesticides and apply it. Now they get precise information of what the pest is and what specific pesticide needs to be given. The cost comes down. More importantly, the quality of the soil went up because they did not end up giving multiple insecticides at the same time. Yeah. So things like that. So some of these are unintended positive consequences of using technology. That's what we are finding.
Great. And it's really amazing to hear how the suggestions, I would call that, from these beneficiaries of those initiatives is actually strengthening the initiative itself rather than actually leading it nowhere. It's just they are supporting the initiative that's helping support them in the end. And that's, I think, the best way to create any initiative in the future also.
Absolutely.
And again, now talking about the resources that the institution has in hand with the merger itself. So how is it that you streamline the same on-ground efforts by adding, say, strategic partnerships like you already mentioned, or systematic implementation and sustainable vision alongside the stringent assessment that it needs to create an impact that you envision for the organization's initiatives?
No, excellent point. I think India is such a large country and there are many social problems to solve. We figure out that if we have some core competence, then we'll focus on that. If we are able to create collaboration, that's our way of life, then we'll use that to create scale and impact. So what we have done is basically in the chosen areas that I mentioned to you, education, women empowerment, agri and related areas, we have then basically looked at the technology IT skills that we possess in order to link up to two things. One is social sector partners who are in that space, because they provide us the necessary insights in a very fast manner, right? We could get the same, but through a lot of hard work versus, getting it from people who are experts. And then we are able to turbocharge a lot of state government and central government initiatives, right? Because there's something ongoing, but they're lacking some of the insights and the early interventions on technology front. If we can leverage that for them, then it just kind of creates an exponential impact as far as the reach is concerned. The second thing is we sometimes even align ourselves with other programs happening on the ground. So if there is an agri project which is going on, as it was in the case of Solidarity, our social sector partner, we plugged in our technology with them to make sure that it therefore has rapid rollout opportunities. Now, having said that, we believe that feedback is the most important loop which has to be completed for making programs self-sustaining in the longer run, particularly because you cannot keep hand-holding forever. It's like teaching people how to fish and then you allow them to fish themselves. So when we scale down our involvement in the projects, then they should continue to be sustainable. And we do that with ongoing project assessment on a literally structured basis. So weekly reports, field visits, even now, even if we can't physically visit, we still do virtual calls with the beneficiaries, with the program implementers on the ground, right? So project managers who are struggling with issues, what are the problems they're facing and how we can solve it for them, because once they're empowered with the right tools, then they can do magic out there. Besides this, of course, we also have mid-project and end-project assessments to say, okay, while ongoing project assessment allows us to do mid-course corrections, these mid-project and end-project reports help us to see, okay, if this was X was the objective that we set, what did we accomplish out of it, and what can further be done in order to scale this up further in a more meaningful manner. So this is a very important point you raised. So there's an art and a science both to what we do, and I think the science of feedback and dealing within a structured and meaningful manner is what makes us more agile and more impactful on the ground.
Now we're just coming to the end of the conversation. So how do you see your efforts evolving over time, say with regards to forging partnerships with public and private sector institutions like you already are doing and would be envisioning to do for more projects, or strengthening the existing systems or processes that are in place, or also probably learning from any best practices in the sector itself?
Superb. So one thing is, as I said, we are fortunate to have good relationships in the social sector and the government sector as a team. And so what it allows us is to keep our antennas open about what is the chatter, what are the problems that are being looked at, how are they being addressed by others, and so on. So it gives us a fair assessment of what's happening externally. And to me, that's a big benefit, because if you have a good understanding of that, then you can be sharper in your own solutioning and execution on the ground. Now, having said that, what we've realized is that situations on the field change, technology evolves, and therefore we need to rewire our on-ground execution to enhance impact. I mean, we have to do it. And And so it's something that to our mind, it's like saying the kind of social projects that you've seen in education today will be very different than the ones which were done, say, 5 years ago or a decade ago, because that's how situation on the ground changes, priorities change, or goalposts are enhanced further, and technology itself allows for certain things to be done which could not have been done before. The second thing I find is the government itself is very open to partnerships and collaborations, both with corporates and with CSR entities. And so we expect to see even more public-private partnerships in the future for ourselves as we evolve as an organization on our projects. And just to give you an idea, I spoke about our education program, and in that the project called Jigyasa now for digital education. Now earlier we would identify, along with the social sector partners, master trainers in order to make sure that the teachers were on board and what was expected of them and how they could make the online content which will enhance the students' learning. Now in some states when we went, we found that there are district level or taluka level education officers that are also part of the state government establishment, because they're also after the same objective, how to raise the literacy levels. So we said, hey, can we actually train these people themselves, the district and taluka level, Gram Panchayat level officers? In that case, they become the master trainers. They have also got the mandate of being part of the government, and therefore their ability to enroll and onboard schools in their vicinity is much higher, right? And suddenly, our ability to scale up in that geography of MP has gone up tremendously. And so this is just one example where I said that we can just evolve our programs to create larger impact. Same thing on the Smart Agri Place. We started with some proven solutions because we said important to create success stories early on. And that worked quite well in the first phase already. Then we said, look, India is the startup nation, as we call it often these days. And there are so many organizations, small companies, innovative companies, young people so like you, Deepak, who are basically working in the startup space, and that too in the agri-technology ones. So we said, why don't we tap into that? Benefit is twofold. A, they are now suddenly going beyond what we are thinking into some new domain, number one. Number two, it may be that they are able to solution in a more cost-effective manner than earlier deployed solutions. And if that is possible, suddenly our cost of deploying them becomes less. Therefore, our monies can go longer and we can have more farmers onboarded. And second is that when the prices come down of the hardware or the entire solution, then the sustainability part, which I mentioned to you, that when we exit a project in a particular geography, then the farmers cooperative having to contribute will be much smaller. So they may have to just pay 500 to 1,000 rupees a year, while their benefit is 20,000 rupees a year, right? So the reward for them is that much better. And so these are kind of things that we are doing, which is to tap into what's going around us, the startup ecosystem, the government initiative, which may be legacy systems, which just need a little spark, and suddenly you can ignite a fire and get the passion going in them, right? So these are kind of things that we believe we will do even more in the future, because that's the advantage of being a learning team and a learning organization.
Great. And that's truly brilliant, I would say, Mr. Balaji, the way you're approaching the whole problems or multiple problems in the sector per se, and how you're taking your expertise to everyone, as well as making them collaborate like never before they have. And I think with that, on that note of, keeping the ideation going and keeping the good work going in the sector, we'll just close the conversation. And kudos to your work and best of luck for your future initiatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deepak, to you and your publication. You do fantastic work in the CSR space. So really, really appreciate that a lot. Thank you.